Now, let's for a moment just explain a little bit further about this middle phase that we said can manifest itself as depression. Depression can be in many different forms, and in no way am I pretending to be a subject matter expert on this. But there are many symptoms for it as well, depending on the type. In many cases, you will find that when people are depressed, they do not want to interact with society. They want to stay away alone at home. They want to hide from society. They just want to be alone. But there is another form which is more akin to the kind of experience we are talking about, where instead of wanting to be alone, one is afraid of being alone. One is afraid of hiding at home. One feels the world closing in when they stay at home because it is darker and it is confined within the walls. They would rather stand outside the house than be inside the house. And they want to constantly, so to speak, run away from home, be with people, be with society. If this kind of experience should come upon us, and we cannot find a particular reason for this, to say that this is because I've lost a loved one, for example, or this is because of an illness, or this is because of some misfortune that has befallen me at this point in time. And if we are concerned about our spiritual growth and striving for it, then it is possible, I'm not saying it is, but it is possible that this may simply be the start of something great. It may be what we referred to earlier on. We quoted a hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, where he said, expect relief at the tightening of the chains. When the chains become really tight, at that point expect relief. So this could be the start of the collapse of the ego. This could be the start of going through the dark tunnel at the end of which there is light. And what I'm suggesting here is that sometimes when we have this experience, instead of immediately, instinctively, our tabi'ah will want to flee and look for some kind of a distraction, some kind of an activity, some kind of a new relationship, a new hobby, a new diversion that will take that pain away. That is our instinct, our fight for survival, our tabi'ah. Instead of doing that, we may want to try and endure that for a bit and instead ramp up our communication with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, increase our supplications, increase our du'as, whether it is reciting the du'as taught to us by the A'imma alayhimus salam, or whether it is talking to Allah in our own language as well. We could try that for a bit. If it gets unbearable, we could still go back to familiar territory because that's more comfortable. We are more comfortable with the cocoon where we've lived all our lives. And Allah will give us opportunities again and again. We talked about Him being Al-Qabidu and Al-Basitu. So there is a bit of that squeezing to see how far you can endure, and then that pressure is released and we come back to society. And then suddenly that black cloud is lifted and life seems to go back to normal. And then again it comes to us. But every time it happens, if we are aware that this is a possibility, that this middle phase could occur, then depending on how we are attached, it may take long, it may take short. But this is something to keep in mind, that we could try and see how we can try and endure with du'as. And if we do that, then just like an egg, when you start breaking it, you start seeing cracks around it. It is only a matter of time before it breaks open or hatches. In the same way, these cracks begin to appear on the ego, and that will eventually, it may not collapse suddenly, but it will eventually break apart, and at that point we become something very different. And we said this yesterday, that outwardly we appear to be the same, but inwardly we are transformed. We see the world in new light. We may even be perceptive to things that ordinary people are not. We may be able to hear some tasbih of animals or other things that we read about in our books with people who are enlightened and mystics that others may not be aware of. We begin to see how everything is connected to each other. We become more conscious about the environment as well, because we realize how we are connected and how when we destroy the environment, we are destroying ourselves. So there is a rebirth where the old I, the one that I always thought was I, sort of dies, and a new I is born that is very, very connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we begin to see how we're not really as independent as we think we are, but we're really very, very dependent on a source, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as we said, oftentimes when we have this frightening experience, there is a need to a want to retreat, to run away, not to go through that tunnel. And it is okay if we do that once, but what we'll find is when we retreat, the life that we come back to is not comforting either. We're still fed up with that old lifestyle. We're tired of eating those rotting leaves. We still desire something higher. So now we are caught between these two states. On one hand, we are afraid to go through that experience and endure it. On the other hand, there is no joy and comfort in that which is temporary. And therefore, that is where holding on to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with our prayers, our salat, and of course, holding on to the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. These are great sources of comfort and help for us that we can use at these critical moments of our lives.